Bobby is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Activator Dealer Services. He is a highly credited and results-driven operational sales and marketing leader who possesses over 20 plus years of professional experience. Bobby started his career in automotive selling cars in New England and quickly found his passion for the industry. His journey has led to his extensive digital and social marketing background, consumer engagement, and C-level relations. To date, he holds a BA from Kent State College and an MBA from D'Amour McKim School of Business, Northeastern University. Every time I listen to Bobby, I walk away with multiple nuggets. So you guys are in for a treat. Bobby, my friend, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. And thanks to everyone who's joining now or perhaps watching this later on the recorded version of this. I know right now we're kind of coming into a busy week with the month end, and we're coming out of kind of the first long holiday weekend of the busy holiday season. But as Susan indicated, I'm really excited to share some of our insights, introduce to probably some people this whole concept of a customer data platform or a CDP. At Activator, we've been building an enhanced equity mining and customer journey marketing platform for the past 12 months in earnest. And a CDP is really the brains behind everything that we've been building, and everything we'll continue to innovate on in the months and the quarters and the years to come. And it's funny is I'll spend a little bit of time on kind of comparing a CDP versus a CRM. They both should exist together. But I started, as Susan mentioned in the intro, I started selling CRM systems after I helped to deploy one in a dealership in 2006. And when that started, I think there were really 4 CRM companies in the market. There was Autobase, which is where I worked. There was Hire Gear. There was Cowboy, which was, I think, had just recently been acquired by ADP, now CDK. And then Reynolds had kind of their first generation of a CRM system. And I was living in New England, and most of the stores that I would sell were implementing a CRM for the very first time. And now it's, been almost 20 years later. And, there probably isn't, there probably are very few and far between dealers, anywhere in America that haven't been on their probably second or third generation of a CRM. But the way that CRM changed and really aided the sales process and the way that dealerships handled ups and floor traffic and how they collected data and how they enhanced internet lead management. It's obviously obvious, and I'm not going to get into all those details, but I believe the impact that CRM had on the sales process, I believe that customer data platforms over the next couple of years will have a similar impact on the way that dealers are reaching out, engaging in marketing to their customers and future customers. So with that said, we've got a couple topics that we're going to explore today, probably over the next 25 minutes or so. So what I'm going to first start is really define this 101 level, right? So really define what is a customer data platform. Help to focus on the, kind of really what are the top 3 or 4 things that a CDP can help your dealership do. Then we'll spend a little time kind of digging into what's the strategic end game of this, right? Which is it's an evolution on better engagement. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking on that. And then third is really the execution, right? It's the whole point of this, right? And then we'll wrap up before we get into some Q&A. We'll wrap up with a little bit of evidence on what we've been seeing. I'm cognizant of the fact that I don't want this to be a sales pitch, but it's kind of hard for me not to talk about some of the evidence without talking about what we're doing in our system. But I promise that this isn't going to be a hard sell, but I will be sharing some things that we've learned along the way. And then we'll certainly leave some time towards the end of this for some Q&A. So as we kind of jump into this, right? So before we get into kind of just the initial 3 or 4 advantages that a CDP can provide for a dealership, let me just take a step back and what are some of the first cousins of a customer data platform, right? So we're all familiar with CRM, right? The operative word in there is the relationship, right? So customer relationship management system. And again, the goal here isn't to educate people on CRMs. I'm just trying to provide some context before we dive into the CDP. But CRMs really are designed to organize and manage customer-facing interactions. The data usually serves up a client's name, a history of some interactions with the sales team. But the goal of a CRM is really to help customer-facing employees at a dealership or at a business, we use a CRM as well, to land new business, keep existing business, and really to manage those relationships with just a running log of interactions, reminders, and some simple abilities to do some kind of one-to-one email push, some mini campaigns, right? Then a DMS, again, obviously everyone's familiar with the DMS, but again, it's bundled management information, right? That we know, right, is really catered to finance, catered to sales, catered to inventory, and really all the administrative components that one needs to run the day-to-day business in the store, right? But both systems are fine, and we're not here to try to replace those. As a matter of fact, we want to build upon those, right? But the difference between a CDP and say a CRM and a DMS, CRM and a DMS, they're not really designed to understand or interpret data, right? It's not natural for them to share information out to other systems, specifically marketing systems, which explains, kind of some of the lackluster email blasts that we get from a dealership CRM, right? Or a lot of the return mail that sometimes we get out of it that's coming directly out of a dealer's DMS, right? And the point is it's not to be negative on those. It's just simply they're not designed to do much with respect to marketing. However, the irony is from a DMS is usually the primary source for a lot of outbound dealer marketing, right? Whether that's equity, following some buyer journey marketing, win back campaigns, et cetera. So we'll talk about how a customer data platform can help to address that, right? So what is it, right? A CDP, think of it as a piece of marketing technology that's designed with key features and benefits in hand, right? These features and benefits make it very easy to both manage and gain and pull insights from customer data. And there's typically, there's hundreds of customer data platforms, if not thousands out there that you could utilize. We happen to be building ours on a platform provided by Salesforce.com. But regardless of whether you try to build it yourself or you partner with a company like Salesforce or somebody else, there's usually three things that are going to be there or it's going to have direct connections into. One is it's really based around a core customer database, and it's a core customer database that's designed to understand a person, and we're going to talk more about that. Then there's either a built-in or a direct tie-in to some type of a marketing automation that can support journeys. And then there's the ability to either tie in or connect with true multiple channel tools, right? All three of these things are designed to work together and ultimately to collect information and understand that information in real time. And so for our dealers that we're starting to work with now, we're following that methodology. And so just envision a triangle. And on the right side of the triangle is our proprietary equity database, right? Some people might remember that as Deal Activator, right? So that's our proprietary equity database that we pull information from the DMS, and then we allow that to do its thing and work its magic. And then on the other bottom side of that triangle is our marketing automation system, which we're also building within Salesforce.com, and specifically we're using Marketing Cloud, and that's where we're delivering the journeys that customers are following. That's where we're executing through different channels, and that's where we believe that's where our customers are kind of getting access to literally the best in class technology. And then we're supporting right now that through email, direct mail, and SMS. But then at the top of that triangle, so we've got the equity data, we've got a proper journey builder, and then at the top of that, we have the customer data platform. This is the brains of everything in that system, and all of the information flows in both directions. So all of the data that's coming into the system is flowing in both directions with the customer data platform up at the top, and all of the interaction that's coming out that's being executed through the journeys, whether it's an email, it's a text message, it's direct mail, it's other channels that we'll be delivering down the road. Maybe that's digital. That's also talking in both directions with the CDP. So the brains, it's where all of the data lives, and it's where it provides all the insights used for that communication. that's ultimately pushed through the marketing automation tools. And then as customers engage and we collect data and information on that, that's fed back to the customer data platform, which just the more you feed it, the smarter that it gets. So now we'll really dig into, right, what is it, right? And so I could spend the next 3 hours digging into this, but for right now, we'll focus on 3 things. And I'm going to repeat this at the end, right? And at its core, right, a CDP is going to help make sense of all of your data by putting it into one place, right? I mentioned before the information coming out of the DMS, right? There's also other information that could be coming from Equifax or IHS or Polk or all these other third-party data sources come in there, right? So it basically helps make sense of all this data and putting it into one place. And the database itself is designed and intended to understand an individual. And then the 3 benefits that delivers almost immediately is it makes it easy to collect data, then it unifies that data, and then it allows you to activate or execute on that data. So I'll kind of unpack all 3 of those things. So when we think about collecting the data, right? Again, think of the CDP as the central hub or as the base camp to store all of the first party data, all of the third party data, all of the interactions, right? That your dealership has today or will probably have tomorrow. And there's going to be more data as opposed to less data as we continue to move forward with this, right? And the CDP's job is to identify each person as an individual by ticking and tying back all of that data from these different systems and platforms. And then most importantly, it's pulling in information from systems like a DMS that wasn't designed to easily share that. So the CDP helps to make sense of that and collects it all in one spot. Then it starts to unify that data. So once you've pulled together all of this disparate information, the CDP starts to get to work, right? And it's linking identified information like an email address or a cell phone number or a mailing address, right? And then it combines that with anonymous information that might be being tracked by cookies or engagement or interactions that people are having with content or on a landing page. And so I'll think about all that tracked behavior, right? And so the point here is you're able to start to understand the entire picture of somebody. So not just, Bobby Gaudreau lives at 11 Shadow Lane at this address and, might have this equity in his vehicle or is due for service. Of course, it has all that information, but then it's also pulling in other information, behavior information. So it starts to building an entire picture on somebody, which informs a marketing system when and where and why to engage somebody next. So we've collected and then we've unified that information and now we start activating or executing on that, right? So now that we've untangled this whole ball of lights, we can serve up this information to marketers and the marketing systems that they're using to truly create personalized experiences. So forever, people have said the right message to the right person at the right time. A CDP actually makes that happen. And this personalized treatment, as far as my experience, which has been a long time in this industry, the only way that this is really made possible with the challenges that we have with data is really only made possible through a CDP if you want to take it to this next level. So hold on here. Sorry, I lost track of my slide here. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So how do you actually empower, right? Your stores kind of with a customer data platform, right? So this is ultimately the point, right? It's all about an evolution of engagement, and it's all about an evolution in terms of marketing. And as Susan mentioned in the beginning, my very first job out of college is I worked for a Volvo dealership in Brighton, Massachusetts, called Boston Volvo Village. And I can remember, sitting in the Saturday meetings and we'd pull out the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald, and we would look at all the ads that all the other 8 Volvo dealerships in Greater Boston were running that weekend to understand what they were doing, right? And so that was what we had at that time, right? But then newspapers were replaced by websites, and then websites were augmented with digital ads, and digital ads were then advanced with social marketing, and on and on and on, right? But ultimately, it's all about reach, and it's all about maximizing the message to ultimately drive traffic into the showroom, right? And so the unified customer profiles that are only created through a customer data platform make it easy to understand the entire customer journey, because it's understanding what somebody's looking at, what somebody's sharing, but more importantly, what's getting them to convert, right? What's getting them to engage, so you can start doing more of that. So this information quickly allows you to start to create segments or personas of customers to start to reach more people within your audience and to convert more people faster and ultimately more efficiently. So we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. So hopefully that paints a picture really in terms of what is the CDP and really what's the point, right? How does this, you collect all this information, you unify it, and then you activate it, right? But how does that ultimately help you sell? How does that help you service, right? So hopefully I can answer that in terms of the empowerment. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about, we've established the importance of data, right? So now let's talk about engagement. And so data is at the center of marketing, right? And data is super complicated. And as you know, and we all demand more, right? We're all getting targeted by different companies outside of automotive, right? And once customers experience true personalized experiences anywhere, they and we, myself, right? We expect it everywhere. Anything less, it becomes disappointing, right? And we all have to be able to provide at least the base level, right? If not better, regardless of the channel that it's being delivered, right? So can't just be email. It can't just be direct mail, can't just be SMS. It's all got to work together. And in order to really stay competitive in any industry that you're in, right, you have to keep customers appropriately engaged. And you're going to need well-maintained, accessible, and actionable data, right? This is the table stakes. So when we think about the role of data in all of this, the role of engagement in all of this, just like we defined what a CDP is, let's define a little bit about what really is engagement, right? And so engagement is a process of interacting with customers through different channels to do simple things, right? To develop and to strengthen a relationship, right? Kind of period, end of story, right? It can do a lot of things, but ultimately at the end of this, right, whether that engagement was someone reading the Boston Globe back in 1999, right, or now someone engaging to a piece of personalized content that was served up to me online, right, it's still the ultimate goal, right? We're trying to interact with customers through the appropriate channel to develop and then to strengthen a relationship. And it should be a two-way street, right? So good engagement is going to benefit the customer, and it's also going to benefit the business, in this case, the dealership. And it does this, right, by increasing opportunities into the bottom of the funnel, more people that you're trying to close, right? And at the same time, from a consumer standpoint, it addresses just the rudimentary business to consumer expectations that we all have learned to expect on how we want to be interacted with people that we're considering spending money with. And ultimately, the more engaged people equals more traffic, equals more customers. And also, right, getting customers to engage sooner, right, and throughout the entire journey and throughout that entire purchase process is, so whether it's sales or whether it's service or it's a combination of both, right, is going to give the dealership a better shot of creating loyalty and strengthening that relationship, right? And it's more opportunities to collect data, right? And so think about, right, the more interactions lead to more people finding you when they're ready to transact. And we'll talk a little bit about the different approaches that we've been taking that have been working very, very well. And each time someone engages, and assuming that you've got a system that can learn from that, like a customer data platform, and provides the store with insight, and specifically the system with insight that informs marketing decisions, such as when to retarget, with what appropriate offer or what appropriate message, and then including what's the best channel to be delivering that on. And remember that each touch should meet the customer where they are, right? Not where you think they should be or not where you wish that they were, but understanding where they are in their particular journey, right? Or you're being strategic and tactical when you're reaching out to people that might not have engaged yet, right? To kind of determine where they are, right? Because the goal here is not to drive people away. The goal here is to understand where someone's at and then get velocity and momentum into that process, right? And to make sure that you're fostering that relationship at every step of the way. So, excuse me. So we'll kind of switch gears again, right? So we defined a CDP, kind of talked about how that empowers the store, talked a little about the point of engagement. Engagement is kind of a term that's used loosely, right? It's kind of really defined on when used properly. Here's how a CDP can kind of really zero in on from the engagement standpoint. And now we'll kind of talk a little bit about now what this allows you to do, right, is evolve beyond kind of, just static campaigns, age-old email blasts, right? Kind of just stale leads where we're just hoping, someone blinks and we pull them in. And when, I mentioned before, I used to sell CRM systems, right? In the early days, right? When I was deploying it in the dealership, and then, 2006, 2007, we used to have this thing at Autobase called the Daily Run. We'd come in every morning, you turn on your computer and you hit this button, and then out of the printer came hundreds of letters, right? It was printing service reminders and birthday wishes and thanks to your 1 year anniversary of purchasing, right? And at the time, that was amazing, right? And then we started talking about, as we got into 2009, that we're going to have the ability to email all this stuff, and we didn't have to lick 400 envelopes every day and put those into the mail machine and send those out, right? So it's just all this is it's an evolution, right? But the point that I want to make here is it's not enough yet just to try, right? It's not enough to say, I'm just doing this and kind of go through the motions. You've got to be good at being good at it, right? And so when we talk about the role that a CD plays in engagement and collecting and unifying and executing on that, the more customers engage, the smarter the system becomes, right? So even with the birthday letter, right? What was the intent of that? The intent was all about making a connection and having a positive experience and being memorable, right? But today it's way more than that, right? We snicker at the birthday email, right? Or the birthday letter. But today it's connecting beyond just a critical touch point that's been determined in some static journey, or like we're supposed to do it at this particular interval, right? In the times that we're in now, it's meeting somebody where they're at, right? And it's doing that with highly personalized, highly engaged content that's done on a one-to-one basis, right? And this is the personalized content that's coming is made possible with the customer data platform. So we'll dig into a couple other benefits here, kind of before we kind of dig into this last area. So the one big benefit, right, is the ability to have suppression, right? And if anyone's been doing email blasts for a long time, everyone, like, we have a suppression list, right? Or we're not going to send it out to these people. But that's always largely manual. You cross your fingers and you hope for the best. What we're talking about here is intelligent suppression, right? And the point is sometimes it's just as important to understand who not to send to than who to send to, right? It's at the core of being personalized, right? If I'm sending you the wrong message or I'm doing it at the wrong time, I'm telling you, I don't know anything about you, right? I'm telling you that I don't care. I've been lazy on figuring that out. And you basically negate any other equity chips that you put in there to kind of build that relationship. And so if you remember kind of that whole collection, unified and activate thing that's at the CDP's core, that in that unification process, the system can automatically, because now it is taking in personal information and it knows certain transaction dates and it understands that, so that it's easy to start writing rules into that system to automatically create suppression within a particular customer journey, whether it's for sales or whether that's for service. The next area on that as an outcome and a benefit is the ability for personalization, right? So think about all of the possible touch points, right, that someone could or should make leading up to making a decision, right? Whether it's following a service interval journey, right? Or it's buying a new car, it's getting into a pre-order to buy something else, it's doing some research. It's not infinite, but there's a lot in there. So every time you collect information or intel on somebody, you're increasing the chance that the next pet message is going to be a little bit more on point, right? And I think I read an article recently from Salesforce that customers are 5 times more likely to engage when they've received content that's tailored based on their interests, based on their previous actions or past history, right? That's not a revolutionary statement that I just made there, right? Like we've known those things for a long time. But the point is the system itself is understanding that stuff and making those decisions on your behalf. And then the third area is insights, right? It just takes the guesswork out of a lot of this. So the CDP breaks down all of the silos that are just inherent. And it takes all of the data from all these different sources, all the different analytics, and organizes it into one system that's designed to learn and it's designed to share. And its whole purpose is to then help execute and push that information into the appropriate marketing systems. So the kind of the summary on this, right, is it's no longer enough just to have data in a neat place, right? It's about using that data to drive engagement and to provide those right experiences every single time. And you miss on that once and you can ruin it forever with that particular customer. And it's because they are getting that level of experience. They are getting that kind of message through a lot of other places that they're choosing to spend money, all of us included. So kind of just taking us home here, kind of in this last section here, is I'm going to share just a couple use cases of some of the things that we're seeing that works here. But there was an article a couple months ago that Brian Pash had published out on, I think the first place I saw it might have been on LinkedIn or on a couple places, right? And he's typically on the leading edge of a lot of trends and a lot of areas, especially around engagement and customer marketing and digital, obviously. And there was a whole article on the CDPs are kind of coming at us like a freight train, right? And the 2 takeaways that I had from that first article that I read was that of the top 50 groups that he was aware of, right, almost none of them, very few were leveraging a CDP, and a lot of them didn't even know where to start yet. But however, using a CDP is almost synonymous in most other industries outside of automotive. Very similar to when I started selling CRMs into dealerships in 2006. They've been around for 10, 15 years, right, in other industries, but it was new, and there was very specific, right, companies that came out that focused in automotive, right? And that's what we're trying to accomplish here. We're using best-in-class technology, right, to be able to deliver an automotive specific solution for our dealerships, right? So those are kind of really the 2 takeaways from that article that I had read from Brian Pash, right? But so we talked about what's a CDP, we talked about engagement, we talked about empowerment, and in summary of all of this is the CDP is going to solve for the age-old problems that every dealer faces, right? Number 1 is disorganized data, right? Data is a hot mess. And when data is, and I don't care if it's a dealership or it's a company that's selling sneakers, if data is disconnected and data is disorganized, it's so hard to understand an individual, let alone try to start to create connections with them in the way that they expect, right? And the number of data sources is getting bigger as opposed to getting smaller. And that's all the more reason why there needs to be a solution to have all that live in one place, because it's just a DMS is not designed to do that, right? Most of the CRMs that are out there right now they're great, but they're not designed to kind of store all of this disparate information from these other places. So the number one challenge that this is going to help you solve is, kind of just a hot mess data. Number two is segmentation, right? And we don't have to get super sophisticated with this, right? But the ability to unify customer identity. So think of a profile of somebody, because you have the ability to organize everything into one place. This becomes the first step in your ability to segment and start to target better, right? And then everyone can be treated the same because everyone's being treated differently. And then the third area is the ability for that customer identification, right? As we have started to go out and talk about some of the things that we're doing, kind of the roadmap on what we're planning on building, and we're having more and more conversations with customers and potential customers, right? I have yet to meet a dealership that is happy with their ability to link all of the different customer identities that they have from all these disparate sources into one location, right? The CDP is the secret weapon. It is the secret sauce, right? That will address head on many of these issues that have really plagued and will continue to plague a lot of dealerships for years. So, kind of final slide here before we switch over to the Q&A is we'll kind of look at a little bit of some of the success and some of the learnings that we've had, right? Like for us, this has been a whole evolution, right? We for years we were pretty good at it, right? We had a standalone equity solution and really were one of the top players in that space. We had a standalone customer retention marketing, and we were probably one of the very first to market with that. But we realized that there's just an evolution. So we're trying to combine all these things together and wrap that around this concept of the customer data platform and engagement, and using modern technology and being able to do that faster and flex around just these constant changes that are impacting us. And some of these changes become challenges. We want to turn some of these challenges into big opportunities, right? And so in our world, right, the way that we're handling this now is we always start by continuously cleansing and enriching the DMS as the key data source, right? And then we start to plug in, just like a lot of other people, information from other sources, whether that's Equifax or IHS or Polk or just various places, start to insert that into the system, right? But what we're able to do differently is the CDP connects all the dots, right? It connects the dots between information that we have and action that we're tracking, right? So now we start to create a better multi-channel approach and new avenues for personalized journeys, right? And then as we learn, right, the easiest way is to think of two use cases, right? We have one customer over here is not necessarily exhibiting behaviors that they're considering working with the dealership at this point in time, right? Or maybe there's not a compelling event yet where they need or want to spend money, right? But that doesn't mean that that's not going to change in 6 months or 12 months. And I would argue that person probably makes up the vast majority of the people in a database, right? But then we're going to focus differently on the customers who are ready to buy, right? But now we have an ability to do that better and faster with more relevant and more compelling offers, right? So depending on how someone interacts, allows the system to understand what the next step is in the journey, right? And it's not static. Someone just doesn't come out of the journey because they transacted, or someone doesn't come out of the journey because they said, stop emailing me, right? The journey is actually affected by what they do or what they don't do as they work through the flow. When we find a customer who's, say, ready to upgrade, or who's ready to sell, or who's ready to start the pre-order process, right, which isn't going away, they're needing to come in for service because something's wrong or there's something that's been scheduled, right? In our system, they become what we refer to as a hand raiser, and then that's just sent right through our own system or right into a dealership CRM. And what we're starting to see very regularly is about a 20% increase on the reach. And what's very interesting is in particular, when combined, it force multiplies things. So if it's just email, that gets a little bit stale. But when we're combining deliberately all the channels together, the engagement and the reach becomes a lot stronger. And we're seeing like 20 to 30% engagement with SMS in particular, to customers who otherwise were unreachable, right? Because we didn't have the right mailing address, or we had the wrong email address, or the email was just getting buried so far below other things, it was just not something that they are engaging with, right? But once we first engaged with text, then it was much easier to engage with other channels. And the ability to start engaging, not just when we think somebody is ready to do something and kind of just treating everybody the same with an offer and they're ready to buy, right? We're starting to engage people earlier and often, right? And that's when you're sending appropriate content, people will accept that. So in this results in more loyalty, and it results in more chances to connect. And it's collecting critical intel that ultimately is going to deliver more qualified and more engaged hand raisers. So that pretty much wraps it up. So a lot there. I frankly struggled a little bit on what were the areas that I wanted to focus on, because I wanted to leave some time for some questions. So that took me about 8 more minutes longer than I thought that I was going to spend on that. But if there's just 3 things that you remember from this, right, is a CDP. A CDP collects, unifies, and activates customer data, right? It's the house, it's the base camp, it's the brains, it's the thing that everything is tied into. And the CDP solves for the disorganized and disconnected data issues that will prevent a lot of stores from being able to move forward in a way that most customers expect, right? It prevents you from having a chance to even reach customers, which then in turn affects you from being able to engage at all, right? And then just the third takeaway here is engagement is more than just saying, I'm trying to reach someone, I'm doing this campaign, or I'm going to send out this email, or I've got this thing that's on autopilot in the background and I think it's doing a good job, right? That was okay 10, 15 years ago. It's not okay moving forward, right? Engagement is about connecting with somebody where they are, and it's having the right tools in place to collect intel to be able to get better each and every day. So thank you for participating in these slides, and we'll turn it over if there's any questions or any areas that we could dive into a little bit more with the time we have remaining.
All right, Bobby, thank you for a great presentation. Audience, I told you he was a good one. In just a few moments, we are going to begin the Q&A portion of the webinar. But before we do that, I would love to ask a favor. If you guys could fill out our survey, there is a survey icon at the bottom of your toolbar. And, you can just fill it out. It helps us a lot. And if you do not see it, then it'll pop up after we are finished with the Q&A. So let's get to the audience questions. I think we have quite a few. All right, Bobby, how does a CDP ensure that I'm hitting OEM goals?
Yeah. So I think of it, and this is something that we get a lot, right? So we're having conversations with dealers, with groups, and then we're having lots of conversations at the OEM level. So ultimately, the CDP is going to really expose data, right, that we're collecting to other marketing platforms in order to kind of reach a particular goal, a segment, or to execute campaigns, right? So a use case that we were recently discussing is a regional OEM has a KPI for this particular region on first year retention, right? So that's how the folks at this particular OEM are bonus at the end of the year. So we have an ability to think about, you kind of write a very specific campaign that can go into the system, and it follows a particular workflow. And then that is learning, and it's tying back in, and it's taking all sorts of important information to be able to execute on that particular campaign. So it's almost becomes limitless, right? In terms of, it's the art of the possible in terms of what you want to kind of design from a use case or a particular goal, and being able to replicate that. I mean, you just can't build a journey overnight. It takes a long time, but once it's built, then it becomes self-fulfilling.
Okay, how does all of this work with my CRM and DMS?
Yeah. So one, I think as CDPs become more prominent and people start learning about them, I think that there's going to be a natural reaction to say, oh, well, I want to replace something, right? And really, a CDP, think of it this way, is a CDP is using more advanced technology to collect data, to create profiles, and it really adds to or builds on information that is coming out of a CDP, out of a CRM or a DMS, right? So by definition, a CDP unifies data from multiple sources, like a CRM, like a DMS, right? Purchase data that people are getting, website information, chat, text interactions, right? That all goes into the CDP. I would imagine over time, the biggest chunks of that and probably some of the most valuable data is going to be coming from a DMS. And then, depending on how open some of those CRMs are on sharing that information out, certainly the CRM, it might require doing some flat file integrations and or some API work if that particular CRM is going to be open to it. So it's, again, they're really designed to augment and to really build upon the information that's already in there, because the CRM and the DMS, the CRM was designed for one-to-one interactions for a salesperson. DMS is doing great at financial transactions and inventory and the day-to-day running the dealerships. They weren't designed to be marketing systems, where the CDP is that central hub.
Got it. I already pay for credit data. Can I use that?
Yeah, but potentially, but most of the connections there are going to be kind of made more at the higher global level and not necessarily at the dealer level, right? But regardless, anyone that's getting involved in this is going to kind of keep an ear to the ground and pay attention, right, to really what are the common data sources, and be able to plan to integrate those things accordingly. I mean, there will be things that we haven't even considered yet, right? But that, again, I feel like it's bandwagon marketing. I think I've said CDP probably 1,001 times today. But again, what's so special about this, right, is the fact that it's designed to take data from anywhere and anything and make sense of it.
Okay, this next question, I know you've been touching on it a little bit, but I think that maybe the audience would like for you to dig just a little deeper on it. What is the difference between a CRM and a CDP?
Yeah. So again, it's their first cousins, right? And I mean, again, in the platform that our product that we're going to be delivering, we made the decision to build that within the Salesforce.com architecture, right? We evaluated a lot of systems to do that, right? One of them was, we'll build this ourselves, right? But we decided that building it with a company like Salesforce that's been doing this for 15 years, they're worried about the innovation, they're worried about the development, right? And then we just put our ideas and we put all the great stuff from our dealerships in there, and it's just a faster speed to market. But that is built on Salesforce's core platform, right? So that core platform, most people are familiar with Salesforce as a CRM, right? And ironically, the core platform that we're building our system into is similar for the CRM as well as the CDP. But again, the big difference here is, think of the CDP as really just the new evolution of a CRM, but not to replace it, right? The CRM logs known customer data, and the CDP, like I mentioned before, really it uses advanced technology to collect data and then to create the unification of a customer profile and then push that out to the appropriate marketing programs to communicate with customers. So, I think both of these, fast forward 3 years from now, both of these systems are going to coexist for sure.
Could a CDP replace anything I already have?
Well, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I think yes and no, right? So again, I'm going to try to answer this without being a sales pitch, right? So from our perspective, right, our ultimate goal is, we believe what we're creating is the next evolution, next generation of equity mining and customer relationship and customer journey marketing, right? And we're going to do that better, and we're going to do that faster, right? Because we're building this with what I would say is some of the best technology available in the world. And we made the decision to put a CDP at the center of that, right? We could have continued to just have a equity tool, and we could have continued to have some really good ability to deliver content through a journey, through marketing automation. But the CDP at the center of that force multiplies both of those things. And what we've seen a lot is there's a lot of overlap in some of these things that we're all doing, right? And so, there are probably, when you start looking at the different tools and resources that folks are doing for equity or customer marketing or service journey marketing or service retention, the power that a CDP can deliver to some of the core functionality becomes exponential, and it might eliminate the need to do some of these one-off things to achieve a need. So it makes existing tech better if you understand how to connect it all together.
Perfect. We have time for about one more question. If I wanted to do research, who are some of the biggest providers of this technology, or do you have any resources you can recommend?
Yeah, no, I mean, Google is great. It's great. And I mean, admittedly, when we started this project ourselves, we've been at this now for well over a year. I have been in the CRM and the marketing space in auto as well as outside of auto for my entire career, right? And the whole idea and the concept of a customer data platform was a little bit foreign to me. I happen to have a couple of former colleagues in the non-auto company that are working for kind of a smaller CDP player, but admittedly, I didn't realize what they did until I started doing research into it. But the places that I would start, right? A simple Google search is always good, right? If you want to skip on that, my go-to for a lot of this stuff is always Gartner and always Forrester, right? They're in the business of delivering really good content, and it's a great way to get educated, and it's a great way to start to learn all the different options and the resources out there without feeling like you're being sold on something, right? And certainly a lot of the companies that you're going to read about are paying to be part of Gartner, but they're a little bit like Switzerland, so to speak, when they talk about the different options. And then, most of the big household name account companies that you would know, right? HubSpot, Salesforce, Oracle, right? They're all SAP, right? They all offer Microsoft, right? They all offer some version of a customer data platform. And one of the things that we've done internally is we've been educating we're standing up a brand new sales team as we're going to market on this, right? And some people's understanding and learning curve on this is it's a curve, right? But we encourage people to kind of get into a track, right, with one of these customers outside of automotive to see how they eat their own dog food or how they eat their own cooking, right? Because they're using their CDP and their marketing automation tools to engage with us, right? They're using content marketing. They're not just assuming every single person is ready to buy because they said, I'm interested in some information, right? They're teasing people with appropriate content. They're determining where they should go in a particular buyer journey, and then they're acting accordingly, right? And they're trying to advance them through the different stages. And that's the exact thing that we're trying to mimic and build on behalf of our dealers. So if you just Google Gartner and CDP, you'll be able to find enough content to read about until well into the new year. And a lot of the ebooks and infographics that a lot of the sales related companies create are for me personally, they're very helpful. So.
Nice. Well, thank you, Bobby. Yep. That is about all the time we have for Q&A. I'd like to remind our audience that we have been recording this webinar. So just check AutoSuccessOnline.com in a few days and it'll be there. Feel free to forward it to your colleagues, your friends, your family. I think there's a lot of good information that we have there. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Bobby, and everybody have a great afternoon.
Thank you.